good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Flexi webinar. My name is Bennett. I'll be the moderator today. Our presenter is Aaron Clapp, our application specialist at SAi. He knows just about everything there is to know about Flexi, and today he'll be showing us how to use a really useful new feature in Flexi 21. That's variable data printing. After the presentation, we'll be able to answer any questions you have, either about this feature or any other Flexi topics, so feel free to put those questions in the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can. We are recording the webinar as always, so if you want to review anything Aaron discusses or share it with someone else, we'll be sending you all the link this afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. And with that, we're ready to get started, so I'll let Aaron take it away.
All right, so variable data, new tool in Flexi 21, and it's just a pretty powerful tool in terms of what you can do with it, and it is very similar or related to the auto-serialize function. So if you're familiar with the auto-serialize function in Flexi, it allows you to create variants of a single decal. Now, the limitation there is that you really can't do a whole lot with it. There's only certain data points you really adjust. But with the new variable data tool, this kind of takes that to the next level where you can create all sorts of different types of variable data and plug that in. So one of the things that we'll start with is we're going to have our variable data be pulled from a file. So I'm going to show just a quick little chart here that I've created up for this specific demo. So we're going to take this data here and we are going to filter it into a design that we're going to create here. And our rip and print is going to generate a decal for each one of these using its own data point here. So we're going to reference this file quite a bit as we go up. So I'm going to leave this up. I'll probably minimize it here and there, but we're going to come back to this. And what I've done here is simply on my first row, I've put my my keywords or the things that I'm going to need to reference inside variable data inside of Flexi. So name, position, email, phone, picture, website, location. All right. So to get started, the first thing you want to do is go to your view menu and go to toolbars and click on variable data. Now I already have mine tagged up here. So it's up here. And the tools are pretty simple. You've got the convert to variable data. And then on this end, you have the release variable data. So if you want to remove the variable data out of that particular line of text or whatever, you can do that. And then we've got some options like preview. You can save some as a template if you want to, and things like that. These are the options for saving as a template, opening a template, that kind of thing. And then you have your edit variable data. The one that you're going to be probably using the most is going to be the edit variable data or the create new or convert variable data. And the way this works is it automatically grabs the object that you have and converts it into a specific variable data format. So why don't we just get started and let's just create a 5 by 10 here, and let's give it a different color here. So let's just start with 10 by 5. And we'll just kind of create a design here that we're going to use. And we'll just call this, let's use black text here. I need to pull up my fill stroke editor. And we're going to start, let's go with 1 inch for now. All right, so this is going to be our company name, and this is just going to be the name of our company. We'll just stick it up here for now, and that's not really going to change. And let's start filling out our fields. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to do. On this little business card, we're going to put an image, and we're going to put all of our data kind of down here like you'd see on a typical business card. So let's go ahead and grab this here, and we'll look at this. And we've got name, position, email, phone. We're going to do something with the picture here, and then website and location. So I'm going to drag this down to my other screen just so I can see it while I type. But we're going to do 0.25 inches on the text. And then we're just going to start typing up some stuff. And so what I'm going to do here is zoom in just a little bit so we can see this better. So we're going to do employee. I forgot we need to just black. And we'll go employee name. And then I'm not going to hit return. I'm just going to click in a separate field so that it creates separate fields for each one of these. I don't want these to be joined together in any kind of way. So I'm just going to leave these like that. So we're going to go with employee position. Then let's create one for phone number. We'll do email address. We got a one we're going to do for the website address. And we're going to do employee location. So basically right now what we're doing is we're going to start building the kind of the framework for what this looks like and what we want to do. Now, the important thing to remember about these variable data stuff is that it does take attributes just like the auto serialize does. It takes attributes of the things that you apply to it. So for example, if I click on this one here and I choose different spacing or alignment options, when it generates the variable data for that, it's going to inherit those attributes. So the font, the style, the color, all that kind of stuff is going to be inherited from whatever you have here. And so that's going to be really important as you kind of build this out. Know that those things will happen. So we're just going to throw these on here. Let's put the position below here. And let's go ahead and put email address down here. And let's just space those out. And let's do a employee location, phone number, and address. Okay, so we've got a rough outline here. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to select each object individually, and I'm going to hit convert to variable data. Now, when I convert to variable data, it automatically will highlight or determine what that object is and then give you the appropriate settings for it. So this is text, so it's going to basically look for a string or something like that. So the important thing here is going to be these two things here, keyword and variable string. Now the variable string is just like a name or something that shows up. The keyword is the more important one. This one is the one that's important to make sure that it matches up with our data points here. So when I look at employee name, I'm going to be looking for this top field and what I want it to replace it with. So in this particular case, even though I've typed in employee name, and that's going to be my placeholder text, I want this to change to name. So I'm just going to delete that part and leave name. Now, I can also do some different adjustments here. So I can make adjustments physically to the dimensions of this bounding box, or I can just simply drag it. What this does is this actually restricts my bounding box as to where the text is going to fit into. So if I want the employee name to be larger, I can make that larger just like that. and it's not a problem, or I can make it wider so it's got a bigger area for it to fill into. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to fill it in, but it might depend on what you have set. So now down below, you'll notice not only do we have scaling options for the bounding box, we also have settings for scale to fit and proportional. So depending on what you're doing and what kind of result you might want to undo the scale to fit or undo the proportional option. If you don't really care, about some of these things, you can kind of change them and make the adjustments that you need based on what you want. In this case, I want it to stay proportional. I don't want it to skew the name or anything oddly so that it looks weird. And I want it to just scale it to fit inside of this bounding box. And that's what I'm going to use for the most of these options, just because I know that works really well for text and things like that. So, but if you have a case where you want this to scale it and stretch it, that's also an option. So I'm going to leave that at name, and we're just going to go through here and click each one. Now you'll notice a slightly different aspect to this. As we zoom in here, this is now switched to name. So my placeholder text is here, and it says name. So this field is going to be looking for the name field. And as I click on employee position, what do I have that set to? I just have it set to position with a capital P. So when I convert this to variable data, I'm going to change this here. Now, if you are having any kind of issues when you start going through this process with getting your lines to match up and your data to match up, this is probably where you're going to want to check. It's the first thing you want to check is make sure your keyword is set exactly the way that it is inside of your Excel sheet or inside of your data file, because that's going to be really important. And you can kind of tell that on purpose, I put a couple of these as lowercase and a couple of them as uppercase because it does matter. And so that's going to be really, really important. Once I'm done, I hit apply, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out so that they're all about the same. Take our email address. It looks like it's lowercase email. So we will grab this again, convert to data, and we'll just do email. Apply, and then we're going to zoom out and scooch over here. Location, that's with a capital L. So we'll do this. Location, apply. I'll stretch this out to the edge there. Do our phone number. And how did we have that set? Just phone. So, no capital. Can't remember. Can't let that happen there. So we have phone. And then website address, I think, is just website. So let's double check it. Yep, website lowercase. Okay, perfect. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do is I want to put some kind of a little image right here. Now, I don't have any pictures of any people per se, but I have some textures that I have from a previous demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply a placeholder here for an image. So what I'm going to do, and this doesn't really matter a whole lot how you do it. You could just take an existing picture and put it here. In this case, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to draw a little square like this, and just make sure it's the same size. So let's just see. That looks about right. So why don't we make it 2 by 2? That would be perfect. And then what I'm going to do is let's change this to a different color like gray. And then I'll apply some black text here that just says image. That way I know what this is. Now I'm just going to take this real quick and I'm going to rasterize it. So this is basically going to turn into a bitmap. So now you can see it's a bitmap. We can see the bitmap tabs here, and that's going to be our placeholder for our image. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to go back into my variable data, click on that. And a lot of your same options are going to apply, but this time it gives me this bitmap embedded, and then it also takes out the variable string. So this one is fine. What we're going to do here is I'm just going to put this variable in here called picture, but we're not actually going to pull it from the Excel sheet. I think in this case, it's too annoying or too difficult really for me to try and place the folder path of where I want the picture to go. Because if I wanted to do this right from here, what I would need to type is I would need to type in the folder path of where the picture needs to be pulled from. So that would be where I'd need to pull it so that when it looks for the picture, it can pull that off. I'm going to do this a slightly different way that's a little bit easier, that's right inside of Flexi. But I still wanted to have this available in case that's something that you would want to do, is you could do that there. So I'm going to leave it at picture, hit apply, and then let's take a look at our variable data. So we're going to go to rip and print. So we've set everything up. We kind of like the way our design is going. We go to our rip and print, and we're going to pull up Production Manager here. It's got to load, so we'll give it a second. Okay, so we've got our design, and as we can see, it's got our placeholder text and everything in here, just as we see it. Now you'll notice that just like when you create a contour cut in Flexi, it gives you an extra tab. Now you get this additional tab here in the variable data section. So we got this new tab. We'll click on it. And by default, these options here, apply variable data and preview, will be unchecked. And I'm going to load a data file. Now, this is important. If you're using keywords on the first row, then you're going to want to check this box. By default, it's usually always checked on because that's typically how most data files work. And we'll load. And I'm just going to pull in my CSV file and hit OK. And now it's going to bring me up with this dialog here. Now it looks like it's done everything the way that I want it to, except for name. For some reason, it didn't pick it up for whatever reason. So I click on it, and I can name, and I can map it. And I'm going to map it to name. And then I'll click OK. And now it imports in all of my data for me. So I've got my names, my positions, I've got my website addresses, I've got everything here, and then I also have my picture section. So what I'm going to do with the pictures is I'm just going to use a drag and drop function in order to do this. So what I've done is I actually have a folder on my desktop here. There it is. And I just have a bunch of images of some different textures. So what I'm going to do is, in this particular case, I have 6 entries, I believe it is. Yes, 6 entries. 6 entries. So I'm just going to take the first 6 pictures. Let's do 1 through 6. And I've named them this way specifically because I want them to correlate with the names on in my list. And I'm just going to drag them over and drop them. Oops, now I made a mistake there because I didn't drop them from the top. So let's try that again. There we go. And in fact, I'm going to clear that out just in case, because I'm concerned that since I did that wrong, I want to make sure that comes out right the first time. So scooch over here. And okay, drag it click it onto the top one. So it's going to put image 1 on 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. There we go. And now I can close this window. All right, so now that all of our data is placed in, I can choose apply variable data. Now, again, if we zoom out here, it's created all 6 decals, but none of them have their information. So if we zoom in, we can see that it's just placeholders text, just to keep it simple. But if you actually want to preview the data, just click on the option for preview. And now just like that, it's filled in every single one. So we've got Amy in sales, Utah, that's their extension number and their website. and we can kind of go through here, and each one has their own image. Each one has their own email address, their own name, position, everything like that. So it's all ready to go. And it'll do as many of these as you need to. So I can also come in here like this, and if I want to make multiple copies, I can now make multiple copies of each one. So now I can zoom in, and we're going to make 5 or 4 copies of this one, and they're all going to be kind of in a row like that. So I can make duplicates if I want to, or things like that. And this is a super powerful tool to kind of get all of this set up right inside of Flexi. The other advantage of doing it within the production manager is that the rip and print, sorry, is that one of the kind of the drawbacks with using the step and repeat is that you had to create the graphic inside and all the different copies inside of the designer, which I don't know if many of you are familiar with this or not, but when you create copies inside of the designer and then send it to the production manager or the rip and print screen, it creates a higher or a larger data file. So the less amount of data that you put inside of the designer portion back here, the lower or the smaller the rip file actually has to be. In this case, we're only ripping the one design, and it's just duplicating the same data in its process as it goes through. So doing it this way versus with the auto serialization, the auto serialize would actually create a fairly large file, especially if this image that we're applying, let's say this image is like 10 megabytes. If we had to do this with the auto serialize, all of a sudden now we have, all these copies, and each one of them 10 megabytes. It makes your rip file massive. Whereas in this case, it's reducing the amount of data because it's pulling it from an external file and it's making copies inside of the rip and print itself, not through the designer. So it makes your ripping faster, makes your processing time faster, and all that is much better. And so that helps a huge amount. So that also translates to, as it's sending to your printer, the files aren't as huge. You don't have to deal with necessarily the files getting bound up or processing in production manager while it's printing, so you can kind of avoid some of that. So overall benefits are going to be that you can a limitless amount of data points. You could actually come in here and add data points on your own if you wanted to. Now, obviously, we think that's probably not the most ideal situation, but we decided to give you the ability to come in here and do this if you wanted to. So if you needed to add or remove data points, you can just say new. I could put a new field in here, and I could fill it in all by myself if I want to. Let's say maybe I forgot to put one in, and I say, oh man, I need, I need to put my name in here, and maybe we do something like this. So I can manually fill this in just like that. And now I don't have a picture for mine, but now all my data is just right in there, just like that. Really easy, really fast. So if I needed to add something, I can, or if I needed to delete that entry, let's zoom out here, get rid of it, and it's gone. So really easy to edit in case you need to edit something after you bring the file in. Gives you that option if you really need to. So we think this is going to be a really powerful tool. One last thing that I will mention is that if you've seen our webinar on or any of our videos on the jig templates in Production Manager, this feature also works with jig templates. So if you're doing jigs with things, and you have parts that are laid out and you want to use this is fully compatible with jig templates. So they both work well together. So it brings the world of jig templates and variable data together. So we think this will save a ton of time, especially if you're getting into this kind of work. Being able to manage a CSV file or a file right from Excel, adding data to it, and then pulling that data right into Flexi is really going to help you create these designs that are going to be fairly complex, that need changes to each file. Again, the amount of data that you can pull in is limitless here. You can do hundreds and hundreds of copies of these if you need to, or hundreds and hundreds of points of data, and it'll all load these in for you. So we think this is a really powerful tool, and hopefully you guys can use it in the future here. So explore it, test it out, take a look at it. And if you have any questions, let us know. We'd be glad to help you. But we will turn it over to questions now if you guys have any.
Aaron, while we wait for any questions that might come in, I know you mentioned it. I'll just say it again for everyone who didn't catch it. If you want to check out any other videos we have on this topic or jig templates like Aaron was mentioning, you can head over to our YouTube channel. We've got plenty of videos over there. We have past webinars and other feature videos. So plenty of content over there for you to keep learning about Flexi. We'll just wait another minute here to see if any questions come in. And I'll say while we're waiting as well that our next Flexi webinar will be on November 2nd. And Aaron will be talking about another new feature in Flexi 21, output channel preview, which allows you to preview print jobs per output channel before it's ripped. So that'll save you a lot of time as well. Aaron, we've got a question from Leon. What type of paper can you use?
This is compatible with just about anything that will run through your printer. Pretty much anything that your printer will print on, you could do this with. This is more of a data kind of thing more than a material. So if your printer can print on paper, vinyl, banner, whatever it is, this will work with all those.
And then Kelly asked, can this be used in VersaWorks?
Unfortunately, it cannot because most of this is done inside of our RIP software. And since VersaWorks is its own RIP, it really wouldn't work. Yeah, because all of the output gets put into and goes filtered through our RIP and our RIP and print and our RIP software. It all gets generated there, so we can't really export this as a file currently or anything like that to be printed elsewhere.
Leon, yes, we will. We'll have this recording up on YouTube, and it'll be sent to your email this afternoon as well to make it easier for you.
One other thing I just kind of thought about by passing as well, this also, if you load, so what I've done here is I've actually loaded my variable data FS file right into Production Manager. And if I open that up, I can actually get it to, I can also pull that data in from Production Manager as well. So if you're someone who uses Production Manager but doesn't really use the Flexi Designer portion of things, it's still going to work. You can set up the template inside of Flexi and then save that template. It doesn't have to have the names or anything put in. It could just be the default, and then you just load in new data files. So if you operate from Production Manager only and you use some other program to design, you can do your design work in the other program, pull it into Flexi, choose the data fields, work that out, and then you could just go right that template is ready to go. And now you can just load it directly into Production Manager if you want to. So with Flexi Design, this option will be available as long as you have a production manager to be able to send to. So that's kind of the key, is that all the variable data tools are there. You'd be able to set up a template, and you'd be able to set all of it up as you need to. But when you're going to output or to print, you will need a production manager or something like that. So if you have one designer and then a production manager that's actually connected to your devices, you could do everything you need to from the designer and send it out to your production manager.
All right. Thanks, Aaron, for answering those questions. If you have any other questions that come up, you can also comment on the YouTube video and we'll get those answered for you there as well. And you can always reach out to our tech support if you have questions there too. So we'll go ahead and close it out for today. Thank you all for joining us for this Flexi webinar. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter so you won't miss out on any webinar announcements. We hope to see you on our next Flexi webinar, November 2nd. Thank you again for attending. We hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.